This is the Georgia Farm Monitor. Since 1966, your source for state and national agribusiness news, and features for farmers and consumers about Georgia's #1 industry, agriculture. The Georgia Farm Monitor is produced by the state's largest general farm organization, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, here are your hosts, Ray DeLisio and Kenny Bergamy.
Well, hi there. Good to see you again. How was your week? Busy like ours, maybe? Well, that is actually a good thing.
Yeah, all the hard work has paid off because once again, we've got a great show for you today. Coming up, is this the future of dairy? It is for One Georgia operation. Why Hillcrest Farm is switching over to all robotic milking and the many luxuries it will provide them. Also on today's program, getting back to the basics. John Holcomb with the story of how one mother's quest for a healthier lifestyle resulted in a thriving business.
And then later, looking for a quick getaway, maybe a day trip with the family? We have got a suggestion, and you'll learn how the city of Augusta came to be in the process. All this and so much more starts right now on the Farm Monitor.
If it's some of the freshest peas and snap beans you're looking for, look no further than Gibbs Farm in Abbeville, as they've specialized in these crops for nearly 20 years. And as you're about to see, they've recently expanded the operation in an effort to get more people on their farm.
We consist of around 350 acres of peas and butter beans, around 1,500 acres of cotton and peanuts, around 150 acres of watermelons. Then we're involved in another about 1,500 acres of produce that consists of snap beans, squash, bell pepper, them type vegetables right there. This right here, the ground that we're standing on, used to just be an old barn and a bunch of pecan trees. I started out loading watermelons under these trees, bulk loading them back in the early 2000s. I graduated high school in 1997, decided, hey, farming was something that I wanted to do. It was a pastime that I had grown up in and wanted to raise my children in that era. So, went through the government programs, got my first loan through FSA and through local banks, and started small and just kind of built my way up. Starting out farming, not behind a father or grandfather or uncle, I started strictly on my own. The row crop business is so expensive to get into that I had to find a niche to be able to help me get my feet on the ground, to get sustained. So hey, peas was something that I looked at and started in '99 to just be able to have a small market, to be able to draw some income coming in. And then I seen there was an opportunity there, so since then I just focused on it to try to grow that business.
My husband's mother she did retail and I did wholesale, and she retired last year, and so me and Eric decided that we had to take on we had to take on her part. And so we added the store so that we could take on our retail customers also. We've not been open but about, this is our second week, and I have met, I don't know, so many different people that I didn't get to see because I just did wholesale. And so now that I'm doing the retail part, I've got to meet lots of new people. We've got ice cream, and so I like the guys coming in here getting the ice cream that's working in the watermelon packing house and stuff like that.
It's a pleasure to just be able to see people to come out to the farm. Farming is a pastime that is being forgotten. I mean, there is so much stuff today. There is not a lot of little country farms anymore. It's all mega-sized farms. So to be able to still have just a small family atmosphere, come out, hey, you can actually see the fields around where your stuff are being grown. You can see how it's being processed. You know, that still shows you that that's as fresh as you can get it.
This year we growed zinnias out here, and you can see those out in the front, and we give you a bucket and some scissors and some water, and you can go out there and pick your zinnias. And we've had the most people stop in. A lot of people share it on Facebook. We've had the most people stop in and pick, cut zinnias. We don't even get to see each other during this time of the year. But hey, I'm so proud that our name is on that bag, and I love it when people tell me, hey, I picked through those peas and they were perfect. It makes my heart happy.
All right, Damon, great job. Well, part of being an FFA member is completing what is called an annual Supervised Agriculture Experience Project. In Madison County, their FFA show goat team does the project by hosting an annual goat sale, which attracts people from all over who are interested in buying a show goat. According to team members, it's a chance to see their hard work pay off.
To show livestock at a high level, or to compete in anything at a very high level, takes a great deal of commitment and a great deal of financial investment. So these students are getting an opportunity to see commitment and hard work come to fruition, as the return on their investment will be seen here today in more of a financial regard.
Whether it's like the Dallas, Georgia area, the Perry, Georgia area, wherever it is, South or North Georgia, we want to open those doors and give these students an opportunity to show quality livestock and have the opportunity for people who are consigning to get to sell that livestock and see the livestock that they've raised do so well.
This, by the way, marks the 5th year the team has hosted the sale. In those 5 years, the students have made more than $100,000 in combined profits.
Meantime, mark it on your calendar now, Tuesday, July 24th. That is the day the fine folks at Sunbelt Expo will throw out their welcome mat for their annual field day. Highlights include a biscuit breakfast, cotton strategies, and a drone demonstration, just to name a few. For more information, log on to sunbeltexpo.com. Once there, you can download the 2018 Field Day Guide. Nearly 20 years ago, Ginger Butts decided to start focusing on her family's nutrition. It worked so well, she formed a business so others could eat healthy.
Yeah, that was also a success, so much so that Ginger recently opened up a new store in Cochran. John Holcomb reports on how all of this is a dream come true for Ginger.
It's something almost 2 decades in the making. Her very own store, stocked with products that are local, full of nutrition, and some of which are even made right here from her farm. And to think, all of this came to be after taking her sons to the doctor.
When my boys were young, they were both diagnosed with asthma, and my older son had ADHD tendencies. And so I did what every mom does. I took him to the doctor, and the doctor did what doctors do and gave him meds. But I just didn't have a peace about it, because I felt like it was covering up the symptoms instead of trying to get to the root of the problem.
Ginger is a believer and did what believers do, prayed about it. And that's when she felt like she needed to make a change.
I'm a follower of Christ, and I prayed about it, and I felt led to treat my children nutritionally. And what that meant is I went back to the basics, and if God made it, I fed it to them, and if man made it, I didn't let them eat it.
She had so much success with her kids, people started buying the products from her. So she decided to start a business.
Well, I've been doing this for 6 years out of my backyard in a 12 by 12 building, working in the house, out of the office in a 10 by 10 bedroom. And I've always wanted to have a place, all of this under one roof where people could come.
So she decided to build it. She opened up the store in May, and while I was there, Ginger gave me a personal tour and showed me what all it has to offer.
It is a market, so when you first walk in, you'll see dried goods, pantry items, and these are things that I have in my pantry that keep me healthy and well. And I can talk about any of these things because these are the things that I buy and that I consume. And with my motto being nutrition from the source, my goal is to help other people get nutrition from the source. So that happens through seeds and grains and beans, and there are going to be very few pantry items because I don't do a whole lot of mass-produced foods. And then my business began with making the homemade baking mixes, and so as you walk further in the store, you'll see that right here we have the collection of all our homemade baking mixes along with fresh milled flour. And I also have a freezer full of pastured meat, and I carry the beef and the pork and the chicken from Marview Farms and from White Oak Pastures in Bluffton. And so these are frozen. So the thought is that an individual could walk into our store in Cochran, Georgia, and they could buy supper. We have the meat, we have the bread, we have the produce, we have the dairy, and everything is local. So we hope this is a place that you can get food that is healing food, but also a place where you can just come and relax The goal is for people to come and to get nourished body, soul, mind, and spirit.
Reporting in Cochrane for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
When we come back, Hillcrest Farm, they're making the switch to robotic milking and say it's an investment towards the future. Owner Mark Rogers explains the many benefits of the switch. Again, that is coming up after the break.
Well, this program was really appealing to me because I learned that you could earn simultaneous master's degrees, both while traveling abroad.
And for me, I've never been to that many states in the U.S. anyway. I've especially never left the country. And to have a UGA professor give me an opportunity to come to Italy and explore other countries for a year, all while getting 2 master's degrees, I couldn't pass up an opportunity like that. My research here in Italy is focused on variable rate application of fertilizer in the wheat crop.
My research is actually a bit entomology based. We're looking into the spatial and temporal patterns of the brown marmorated stink bug in different agricultural landscapes. The end of the campus here is beautiful, and on really clear days you can see the Alps in the background, and it's just a stunning environment.
We're only 30 minutes away from Venice, one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see, and getting to stand on a rooftop in Venice and see the Grand Canal, the gondolas going by, that's definitely an experience that you need to have if you have an opportunity like this.
Being here in Padua, you're really, only a few hours away from lots of different extreme environments. You have the Alps just a few miles north, and you have beautiful beaches just a few hours south.
Whenever you just take a bus home, you're passing cathedrals, the biggest parts that you're going to see in North Italy in this region, and just the views and the people that you're going to meet.
Just learning how to conversate with people in a different language and a different setting.
The food is really good, so if you like good food and are open to trying new things, this is definitely an opportunity for that. So as far as coming here and seeing mountains in the distance between your classes, or just taking a break and enjoying the fact that you're in Italy, you're in pasta and wine country, it's definitely an amazing opportunity.
Summertime for dairy farmers, challenging to say the least. While milk consumption goes up, production goes down, and milk prices, well, let's face it, they never seem to get any better, do they? But for Hillcrest Farm in Deering, Georgia, this summer is filled with excitement and optimism as owners Mark and Andy Rogers prepare to become the first operation in the state with robotic milking stations.
Real excited about our voluntary milking system is what it's called. It's also known as robotic milking. So it's a individual station milking barns for these cows. So it's not like now where we get up the whole herd and we run a group up and then they go in and to each side of the barn and it's 12 cows on one side and 12 on the other. And we do it in a 4 or 5 hour window and we're done milking till the next milking. With robotics, it's really cool. They get up when they want to get up. They go to the robot, it gives them just a little bit of feed and they learn about that feed and it feels good to them. They go in there and it milks, but it does a very consistent job prepping, cleaning, and milking the cow. And it really goes back to like my grandfather hand milking. You could really tell the individual quarters and how much milk she gave. So it's really cool this machine can do that too. So it's like 4 milking machines in one. If it was just me and my brother, we're in our 50s, and we probably would not make this investment. But I've got a daughter in the business now, and she's really good with the cows. My nephew's out here working on stuff right now, and he's really good with technology. He's really good with all those electrical applications that these robots take. So he's going to be our maintenance guy. My daughter will be our cow person. And we're trying to hand it off to the next generation. We're trying to build them a facility for a family farm that can be in business for the next 40 years. We'll be the first dairy in the state of Georgia. I look for some more to do it with labor issues into the future and millennials don't seem to want to work kind of like I did. You know, they don't want to come in at 3 in the morning and come back 15 times, where these robots kind of self-run most of the time. You've got to come in and work on them. They'll call you when something's going on, so you can run up here immediately and check on it. But it frees up your time. If your kid's got a ball game, you can go to a ball game. You're not tied to a milking. So it's a real lifestyle changer. I don't know that we'll make more money with it, but it changes your life. And so that's the key thing for my daughter and my nephew, to give them some different opportunities that we did not have when they were going to school. In summertime, you know, we're real active in crops, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and we're still trying to watch our cows, do a great job with them. But the cows suffer from heat and humidity. You know, some states out west, they do really good. Even though it's hot, it cools down at night, and they can recover in this low humidity. Georgia and Florida in particular, in the deep south, has the worst conditions to milk in most of the time. Now, we've learned to overcome that. You can see at Hillcrest, we've got all these fans and sprinklers going, and we were the first herd in the deep south to have cows over 100 pounds going into summertime per day per cow. It's because we've learned a lot about how to take care of this cow.
Well, don't forget, if you missed any part of the story or others on today's program, you can still see them in their entirety at our YouTube channel, the Georgia Farm Monitor. Plenty of stuff to choose from. In fact, the archive goes all the way back to 2009.
And while you're there, keep clicking and like the Georgia Farm Monitor Facebook page. Send us some feedback as well. If you have a story idea, or if you just want to leave us a comment or suggestion, send us a message either on Facebook or the address on your screen, that is news@farm-monitor.com. Sure, Augusta is known for its famous golf course, but did you know without the Augusta Canal, there might not even be a Masters? We'll explain after the break.
Whether it's sightseeing, relaxing, taking in nature, or refreshing your knowledge of Georgia history, the Augusta Canal Petersburg boat tours have pretty much everything you need. First and foremost, let's start here at the Discovery Center to see the important role the canal played in Augusta's development.
Keeping pace with the New South is the new Augusta, fast establishing herself as the greatest inland and commercial manufacturing center in the South Atlantic states.
I don't think a lot of people realize the significance that the canal had on Augusta. One could argue maybe without the canal there would be no Augusta. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, that's something that historians have pointed out to us. You know, the South went through a lot of changes, and the city leaders in the 1840s needed to do something because the population was leaving. And so they hit upon the idea of building this canal, which was a very forward-thinking idea at the time, to try to attract the cotton industry back to the South where the cotton was grown. And it turned out that they were right. It was a big success, and by the time the Civil War was over and the canal was enlarged, this community was one of the largest textile manufacturing centers in the entire South.
When this story was sent to me, I was looking for the agricultural value, and bingo. I mean, I found it. And when you step inside this museum, you see how much agricultural value is in here. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, absolutely. Of course, if you know the history of cotton, you know that it became an important commodity once the cotton gin was invented. The gin was invented not very far from Augusta. So as cotton grew, it exhausted the soil, and you know, the economy of the original cotton states began to decline. So Augusta needed to hang on to its population, and it looked north and it saw all this cotton that we're growing in the South we're sending to New England and England. Why don't we bring cotton manufacturing closer to the source of the raw materials? So it was a very innovative, somewhat controversial idea in its time, but it proved to be very successful. Well, we call this the Augusta Canal Discovery Center because although it looks like a museum, it's not a museum. We tell stories about how the canal was conceived of, why it was built, how it was built, the effect it had, not just on Augusta, but on the state of Georgia and on the whole Southeast. So not only do we tell the story of the canal as an industrial revolution instigator, we were also the site of the Confederate powder works. So almost all the gunpowder made in the war for the southern side was made right here in Augusta, and it's because the canal was here to help power that manufacturing process.
So with all that knowledge in mind, we loaded up the boats and hit the high seas. All right, a little bit of an exaggeration, but nonetheless very enjoyable and, more importantly, very relaxing. With a number of cruises to choose from, you never know what you'll see on any given day. Plenty of wildlife along the canal, and from what I'm told, there's even the occasional alligator. Me personally, I'm more of a history buff, so this particular cruise was exactly what I was hoping for.
Well, you're going to go on what we call a Petersburg boat tour, and that also has a cotton connection. Petersburg was a farm-to-market town a little further up the river, and the cotton growers would bring their goods, and it wasn't just cotton, it was other agricultural products, you know, timber and corn and tobacco and whatever they grew, and bring it down to Petersburg on the Savannah River and put it on these long, narrow boats that would navigate down the Savannah through the rapids. So the boats were named after the town. Eventually, when the canal was built, it provided a nice, safe way to get around these rocky shoals that were very dangerous. So the boats would lock in at the upper canal and come safely and smoothly down to Augusta, where the goods would either be taken to the factories or shipped further on using rail and water transportation. And we do tours several times a day on general canal history. The tour you're going to take will focus on our Civil War story, which is very interesting. I think a lot of Georgians are very interested in the roles that our state played in the war. Now, Augusta was never in the conflict. We were behind the lines, but we had a big role to play in terms of furnishing the troops with gunpowder and other war material. We also do tours on Friday nights with music. So those are fun. And then about 6 times a year, we travel the entire length of the canal, which is 8 miles, go all the way up to the head gates where it starts and come back. So that last tour will be in November, and then we'll bring those back in the spring.
Well, finally this week, blackberries are one of nature's tastiest and healthiest fruits, and as our friends to the north will attest, midsummer is peak season for the blackberry harvest. Charles Denny takes us to a U-pick operation where the sweetness is just at your fingertips.
Nature's candy ripe for the picking. The blackberries are plump and plentiful at the Cowan Farm in Bradford. 7 varieties over 2 acres.
But everybody remembers going with their mother or grandmother to pick blackberries on the fence row, and that doesn't exist anymore. You can't go pick on the fence row, and so we offer U-pick, and of course the berries, once you come out here and pick them and taste them, they're really, really good.
Looking for a niche market in agriculture, Charles Cowan planted his first blackberry bush here in 2010. For about a 6-week summer window, he hosts pickers who can come out and fill a bucket or buy fruit already harvested. Either way, you get a mouthful of sweetness. Plenty of water is key to growing delicious blackberries.
If we pick them when they're ripe, they have all the natural sugars. Even when we have lots of rain, we still probably irrigate them, especially when they're ripening, and that increases the size, makes them plump and sweet too.
We typically think of blackberries growing in the wild, but more and more they're being cultivated and grown without thorns. That's obviously a nice feature for a pick-your-own operation.
At Cowan Farms, you can pick from bushes with or without thorns. Maxine McCarthy is a frequent customer, and this morning brought her great-grandsons out to help pick. She has big plans for these berries.
Yeah, I make pies and I make jam, jelly, fix the jelly, take the juice and make the jelly.
One of the nice things about blackberry in the fruit world is that the time between planting and the first crop is relatively short.
David Lockwood with UTIA Plant Sciences has consulted the Cowan operation on its management practices. He says Tennessee can grow nice blackberries under the right conditions.
But the newer varieties that we've got now are well adapted, and blackberries are a real good crop for our growers. They're quite dependable.
So if you're looking for a tasty fruit, blackberry season rolls around again about midsummer next year. The folks at Cowan Farms invite you out to pick and graze the taste of sweet success. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, Charles, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.
Have a great week.